Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 716. Today we're going to talk about a couple of expansions for Bloodborne, the board game. I reviewed the base game here a month, maybe 2 months ago I think now. And today I want to talk about two of the expansions. First one being Forbidden Woods, as well as the Forsaken Cainhurst Castle. So these are retail expansions. I know there's some expansions that were Kickstarter exclusives. And so I'm going to take a look at these. These you can find in retail. There are a couple others that also are retail expansions as well. But I'm just going to kind of jump down, kind of walk through, give you kind of a brief overview, and then kind of give you my thoughts as I'm talking about the two different expansions. So I'm not going to come back here to my talking head or anything. If you want to see my kind of more detailed thoughts about the gameplay and the player counts and all that kind of stuff about Bloodborne, I'll put a link to the base game review there. A little bit of a spoiler, my overall assessment of the game has not really changed by playing these expansions, but I will talk a little bit about some more of the nuances of that as I go through each of these two box sets. Alright, so the first one we're going to look at here is the Forsaken Cainhurst Castle expansion. And I would say just right up front, between the two, this one's probably my least favorite of the two, but not by a whole ton. So, as the name of the box implies, this is taking place in a castle. You can see the big castle there on the artwork there. So let's just take a quick look here. You've got some new miniatures in here. We've got some different minions and so on there. These guys over here. Sorry these aren't painted. I do actually plan on painting this game now that I've got some more minis for it, and I am enjoying it, so it's going to be worth painting. So there we go. You got these guys here and a couple of boss figures in the back. But the gist of this expansion can kind of be broken into two different spots. And that, of course, is driven by the mechanics from the two different campaigns. So the first one here is something that you can sort of incorporate into any other campaign, whether it be from the base box or any other expansion. And you have here this Cainhurst summons card. Now you shuffle this into the consumable deck, and if you draw this, then you can, at the end of the current chapter that you're on, go in and actually try to complete then this campaign here. And so whether or not you beat this campaign or not, you will get some more items and goodies and treasures out of this, and that will help you, of course, further along the chapters that you go. So this can be kind of a nice little kind of side quest that you can bundle into the game, and it's kind of a random chance that this will come out as well. So that's kind of a neat thing. This part I really do like. This is kind of a cool little thing. It just kind of spices up existing content, and I like that where not only can we now shuffle in some of these minions here into some of the existing campaigns to give us more variety, but now we've got something like this to kind of add some spice into that as well. Now on the other hand, we have this thing here, and this is also a neat thing on surface, is this long sort of multi-branching sort of campaign. So this is still a 3-chapter campaign. You start with this Forsaken Castle, and this is chapter 1. So at the end of this particular chapter, you will then make a choice. And then you can choose to play chapters 2 and 3 out of here, the Queen's Legacy deck, or chapters 2 and 3 out of the Martyr's Legacy deck. And I don't really want to spoil too much. There's not really a lot to spoil, and this is my one sort of nitpick with this particular one, is when I actually played through this one and went through the Queen's Legacy. I haven't been into the Martyr's Legacy yet. But when it came to the time to make a choice here, I didn't have a whole lot of information about why I would make that choice. Now, when I did that, I actually went back through this and kind of walked myself back through some of the cards and stuff, and I can kind of see where some of the branches of the story that's kind of baked into this one would lead you to kind of make a decision either way. But it just kind of so happened that I kind of went through this on probably the most efficient way of doing it, which will happen. Sometimes the tiles and whatnot will come out in such a way that you kind of will finish the game a little bit quicker than you normally would have. That's my only real big gripe with this one, is just this kind of thing where it's possible to kind of get in a situation where you don't really have a good decision why you're choosing one or the other than gameplay mechanics like, well, I haven't played this one yet, so I'll choose that one, and vice versa. But once you've played through it and stuff, then you can kind of see, oh, okay, so I would go through it and then do it this way if I get these things and so on. So yeah, that's only kind of a weird gripe, and I just wish, and this game is weird because even the video game is like this, where there's kind of a theme, but there's not really a lot there. It's very kind of up in the air and mysterious and all that kind of stuff. So, which I kind of like. It's you know, it's a kind of a moody kind of thing. But in this case, it was like, now I have to make a choice based on no information. I didn't like that I got to that point in the game there where that could happen. So anyway, that's kind of a weird thing. So yeah, so you got here again, kind of 4 new minions here, and then you've got some different, some bosses and stuff. I do like that the way that some of these bosses and things will interact with the other minions when they come out, and the other set does that too, the Forbidden Woods one, and that's kind of a cool little mechanic. So the bosses do actually work, I think, in a much different way between the 2 sets here compared to the base game. And so one thing to keep in mind here is this expansion as well as the other one have their own little tile sets here. And as you can imagine, you're going to be going through a castle. And so there's a lot of these castle tiles like so. And I'll just kind of show you these. There's nothing really too special about the tiles per se. I mean, it's kind of your standard thing. There's a little effects and stuff. Some of the effects you've seen, like this one here, you know, you draw 3 treasures and select one. You've seen them in the other, in the base game. Now there is here, this tile here, so this is the rooftop tile there, and then you've got also here the Queen's Chamber here, kind of depending on which castle you're in. So this is interesting, and there'll be like secret passages and stuff to get to this tile and all that kind of stuff. And I will say, even though the tiles themselves aren't super different or, you know, that interesting, the way that you go through the castle bit is kind of a cool quest. So once I kind of got over myself and, you know, finished this one, and then I got into the Queen's Legacy, for example, that was a kind of a neat quest. So the way that this one sort of played out and the puzzle of it was very different. So again, I don't want to spoil too much, but I do recommend it. I think once you get into past this first one, and again, it's really going to be your first play. That's probably could be a bit of a sour taste on that one. Once you get into it, then there are some interesting, cool mechanics with some of this stuff here. And the interesting thing, the kind of the thread between these 2 second and third chapter groups here is also pretty cool. So again, this is the Forsaken Castle one, excuse me, the Forsaken Cainhurst Castle one. And I would say I'd probably give this one kind of a soft recommendation, but it would probably be a further down the list than the next one. Okay, here is the second expansion. Again, this is Forbidden Woods. So this is kind of a very swampy, sort of grimdark type of situation here. And so if we take a look down here, you can see we've got some of these man-eater boars, these giant pigs, these little revenant ladies here, some snakes, some snake men. These are called mad ones. And then we got a couple of bosses here. This one actually comes off in a pair, and it will behave differently based on kind of the scenario and stuff. It's not always a boss, actually. And then you've got the other boss here. So this one again has also 2 basic sort of scenarios here. We have the Dark Rites, which has its own kind of little special effect. It's kind of like a boss deck, but it more happens like during the course of the turn. And then we've got here the Den of Vipers. Now in Dark Rites, you will be in this situation on accident, you know, not by your design, and Den of Vipers is kind of a more, let's call it, proactive storyline there. Now, these, of course, come with the different tiles there. You can see this is the Witch's Abode, and this is kind of the mud pit and so on. So, this particular expansion, you only ever use tiles from this expansion, whereas the last one I showed you, you'll sometimes have a mix, or you'll use some of the base game and then move some of the expansion ones. And then also you have here this sort of side quest type of thing here. So you can include this sort of bonus mission in with other quests, and this works out a little bit differently. Like this is almost like a guaranteed, well, not a guaranteed, but you much more likely to go off and do this mission and you will get a lot of items and stuff, but you actually don't gain experience or insight. Well, not insight. You don't gain experience or bonus cards that way when you're slaying enemies in this one, but you get a lot of artifacts and stuff like that. So you'll go into this one and do that, and basically you just have to visit Izefka's lab, I think it's called, and then spawn her and then get her item, and then you can, again, at the end of whatever chapter you're on, go on this particular mission here to go get those items. But again, you don't get experience when you go on this particular Forbidden Woods sort of side quest here. So this one is pretty straightforward. It's a little bit more straightforward than the last one, where you have kind of a random chance to get the bonus mission, where this one you can set it up so that most likely you could get it, and kind of depending on how the tiles kind of flop out, it might be a difficult situation to kind of do the bonus mission and the, you know, the normal chapter that you're on. And then you just have kind of two somewhat straightforward quests to go on. But I will say, first off, that the dark rites, the way this works, is kind of like, I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't really love it how these cards work. Again, I'm trying to sort of talk about this without spoiling it, but the way it kind of like spawns things to deal with this is just sort of, oh, okay. It feels a little bit gamey, but it's not terrible. I'm not like trying to say this makes it awful or anything, but this is kind of my one knock against this one. But the rest of these quests here, and the way that the different monsters and stuff interact, and actually the way that the tiles and everything come out, and everything and all that kind of stuff, that is very different. So I think this is probably the most different, the most kind of steps away from the base game. And I don't mean like you feel like you're playing a different game. It's just the behavior of the monsters and the bosses, again, with the monsters, which is similar to what the Forsaken Castle did, where you're still dealing with more than just a boss a lot of the time, still dealing a lot with stuff spawning and respawning and the behaviors and stuff. So this feels like kind of like a horde mode type of thing, where it might keep throwing weaker stuff at you, and you might have stuff kind of respawning and stuff, and then you might run into a giant wall of this man-eater boar who's not really dangerous, but they're kind of tough to kill, you know. So it plays a lot more around with the space of it as well, and even the way that you kind of deal with the tiles coming out. That feels very different. Like one of these quests here, this one is very much an exploratory quest, and it feels like that. And then this Dark Rites one feels kind of like a very claustrophobic in a way. And so the general feeling of these quests and these chapters that you go through just is a nice different kind of step away and above and beyond the base game. And I think because this one is so mechanically different, and I feel like the Forsaken Castle in some ways is kind of superficially different, at least when I put the two expansions together and look at them, that this would be my recommend if you want to get, like, okay, I got the base game for Bloodborne, what should be the first expansion that I get? Whoops, sorry about the wobbly camera there. I would definitely recommend Forbidden Woods over the Forsaken Castle. Now, I'm not recommending Forsaken Castle, but definitely it's probably at the bottom of the pecking order. But again, I would definitely recommend Forbidden Woods. I really like this one quite a bit. And it does give you the side quest as well. And again, even with just adding the expansion stuff in, you do get the extra monsters that you sometimes will mix in. Because a lot of times the chapters, they kind of give you, hey, these are the monsters that are in here. That's what you got. Or maybe you'll have like one random monster come out. But some of the chapters in the quest will say, just, do random monsters. So, you'll have a completely different experience each time you play some of the quests, at least from the base game. And that leads me into kind of my last thought, is there's basically two other expansions, retail expansions, that I think are worth looking at. And the first one would be called The Hunter's Dream, and that actually adds more of this kind of side quest idea, where you can add in actually like little mini bosses throughout the course of existing chapters. So it basically increases the difficulty of all the chapters, but also increases the reward of it. And I've not played it, so I'm just kind of saying off the top of my head. And it also actually adds a chapter that you can add to the end, I believe, of any campaign that you want to run here. So that's interesting. So it's that one you kind of sprinkle throughout. Okay. And so that one I would say probably I would just, this is all just gut feeling because I haven't played those. I would put that one right behind this one, because this one I've played, I know what it is, and I feel like the dynamics are different enough. The other one that I might actually put above this one, even though I haven't played it, is the Chalice Dungeon. Now the Chalice Dungeon has a couple things it adds. It adds PvP, which looks cool. Having kind of glanced through the rules of how that works. It may or may not work, I'm not sure. But it also has this kind of sort of, I'm going to call it like an arena thing. I know they call it an arena thing, but it has a little bit more of kind of a roguelite exploration kind of thing. And it makes use of the random setup every time in there. So then you've got now that extra sort of replayability of those specific scenarios where you are doing the randomness all the time with the different monsters that are involved. So that I might put above that. But really, I think Forbidden Woods, I can vouch for that one. By the looks of them, the Hunter's Dream and the Chalice Dungeon look really cool. And I'd probably, I don't know, I haven't played those, but I'd probably recommend those over the Forsaken Castle. And that one I would recommend just as like you're absolutely in love with the game and you know you just want to add more stuff and adds more variety and stuff like that, then I would recommend that. I don't, again, not recommend it, but that is what it is. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on these 2 expansions. Hopefully I'll be able to get a hold of the other 2 that I just mentioned there, and we'll see. And I'll definitely come in and review those if I do and tell you what I think. But I'm really enjoying this game, and I will say kind of at the end of the day, this hasn't really changed my thoughts on the game, but it has sort of solidified my opinion, and I kind of think more highly of it. But in kind of the technical, you know, nuts and bolts breakdown, nothing of that's changed. So again, if you want to go watch the original review, I'll put a link down below. But yeah, but the gist of it is basically the same, but I do like having now these extra expansions, well, with the extra miniatures and stuff like that. So, you know, stay tuned to my Instagram here over the next couple of months if I get some time here. I will get these painted up and show you how they look. Okay, thanks.